Hi everyone and welcome back. Paul speaks in the book of Philippians chapter 1. He says, "For unto you it is given in the behalf of Christ, not only to believe on him, but also to suffer for his sake, having the same conflict you saw in me and now here to be in me." So Paul understood and rejoiced in the privilege of suffering for Christ. Now, the suffering he's talking about is not a physical suffering. It's not a suffering from disease. It's not a suffering through persecution. It's not a suffering through hardship. But he's talking about a suffering where the desires and the will of his heart is cancelled by the will of God. And that's the suffering that we need to understand. That's what has value to God, is when his will deals with our will. That's the suffering that Jesus experienced in Luke 22 in the Garden of Gethsemane, where he was able to say, "Lord, not my will, but your will be done. Let this cup pass from me. Not my will, but your will be done." His desire was not to experience the cup of suffering, but he understood the will of God, and that cancelled his will. And that's the suffering that we experience. And so Paul now says in Philippians chapter 1, you saw the conflict in me, you felt that there was conflict in me, and there is still conflict in me. And you see, I believe that if we're going to live a life of righteousness and to live a life that is pleasing towards God, there will always be conflict in us. The moment that there's no conflict, it means that we have sidestepped the work of the cross in our life, and we have put ourselves on hold, and we are disguising and covering up ourselves with religious attitudes and a religious lifestyle, and we miss out on the reality. We have the form of godliness, but we deny the power thereof. So God is looking for people who will stay on the road of conflict, stay on the road of suffering, stay in that place where God every day is at work in their life, dealing with issues, dealing with sin, dealing with this, dealing with that. Now, if I understand that well, then I will rejoice. And I will say, "Lord, you are at work in me. This is how I change. This is how I grow." And I give him all the praise. That's why Paul says it's the only thing I can boast in is the work of the cross in my life. That's what God desires from every one of us. That attitude, that understanding. Let's rejoice. Let's boast in his work in us each and every day. May God help us. God bless.